Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing Live Show number 486. I am your host, Lauren Gray. Happy Black Friday. We're here. Hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving in the United States. Us, me, here, we had a wonderful time. It's that time of retail and for us as well, hospitality-wise, to focus in on the fact that people are out in the purchase mood and given circumstances of what's going to happen politically, socially, whatever, end of the year. They're forecasting this to be one of the biggest shopping seasons of the year. So, with that in mind, travel is a part of that. Record travel in the United States, almost 80 million people are supposedly in flux for this holiday, Thanksgiving in particular, obviously. They're already forecasting about the airports and so forth and so on. So there's going to be a bit of a yay, happy, and not happy kind of part to it. In our process of marketing ourselves as to staying with us or reasons to come visit us and all the other fun things that we do as an industry, we probably will also have a lot of consumer sentiment, good or bad, or both, come our way given the circumstances of how their travel experience went this Thanksgiving season. Which brings us to our topic today, which I find to be timely, which we always try to do each week as we talk through events and things that are happening for us in this current time. Obviously, talking about holiday specials and holiday promotions and holiday marketing, if we talked about it now, we are way too late and well out of the spectrum of this. This should have been an August conversation in your internal circles as to what you were doing for the holiday season. The cold snaps seem to be more persistent for those up in the northern areas of the United States. And I am addressing more, and I do apologize for our international audience when it comes to this US-centric conversation. We all have our holiday cycles. They all are variant in what it is that is the predominant feature of our society and our destination. Different religious festivals have different prominence and so forth. So being in the United States, my centricity is to the domestic United States. And of course, North America in general, primarily towards Canada when it comes to that. Mexican travel is very specific as to its regionality and also destination values. It's a little harder to talk in the same context with the United States in the sense of travel destinations. So most of the conversation is about holidays in the United States at this point, and European communities as well go through the same cycle, albeit at different time stages. Sinterklaas for the Netherlands and so forth. Everybody has their traditions. A lot of them start in November. They're not always December, so forth. And of course, we have Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and so forth that all land at this time of year for a lot of places. So with that in mind, continuing forward with the idea that a lot of what we're doing right now, we should have already planned and have begun executing now. And we always look for the consistent weather snap changes. It came much later this year for global warming purposes. Yes, that is a thing. In spite of it, probably going to be downtrodden in the sense of terminology use in the coming years. And for that reason, we have to understand why people would be thinking of us, why people would be considering us. There's a tremendous amount of noise in the advertising and marketing world right now because that's the time of year for it. It is very much about being heard. And you can sound like everybody if you're not careful. And unfortunately, a lot of people pattern themselves off of if everybody else is doing it, I should be too. And you just turn into the noise that's the background noise of this time of year. Which brings me to the problem that we have with marketing in general about this set and run mentality. So our topic, which I have not mentioned to you yet today, our topic today is perspective. It's the key to targeting. Perspective is challenging. We can talk about the perspective of the owner of the hotel or the resort. Their perspective is business generation, context of why they spent the money to build where it's at, to do what it's doing. And for that reason, their perspective is, why wouldn't you want to be where I built this hotel? Because I built it for these reasons. Their perspective is very much about the build it and they'll come, build it where it's at for the value that it represents perspective. Management of the hotel is about deriving the value of that investment. How much can we drive people to this business for the obvious reasons of why they'd want to stay with us? In general, it's still centric on the production of the business. For the operators and those that are at the ground level, property level, their perspective is the ability to handle the business that's coming through and to moderate all of the things that happen in that process. Good, bad, every day is different day. Business is business. Things happen every day. Their focus is on self-sufficiency, self-operations. And yes, we hope out of that process that it is inclusive of the guest perspective of their property while there in the most favorable light possible. Good service, good product, consistency, meets expectations. That guest-centric focus perspective is important. But the perspective that often gets lost is the perspective of the guest. Now, I'll throw agencies in our dialogue of perspective. Agencies, their perspective is what makes the client happy. That's what they do. Agencies are about what they're being told they are wanting, the ownership wants them to have and do. Obviously, there's always the persistency of revenue generation. And very few times is marketing ever based on the perspective of the guest, from the vendor's point of view, from the internal team's point of view. They're about maximizing conversion, maximizing revenue. And that's all well and good. That is the purpose of why you invested, the owners invested in the building to be there in the first place. This is not some mystery. You're not trying to be this martyred business that gives away everything for nothing. That's not what we're trying to drive to. What we are trying to drive to, though, is to be successful at generating revenue, you have to take on the mantle of the perspective of the guest. And this is when we begin to fraction into shattered pieces. Because of everybody's purpose of why they're going to this perspective discussion, purpose, ownership's purpose, management's perspective, purpose, the things we just discussed, it always gets translated into what benefits that perspective, that angle, most. How much can we sell of this? How much can we make from this? These are always the persistent questions that come out of any strategy related to generating business is how can we maximize it? How can we drive it and how can we maximize it? I mean, you talk about fundamentals that talks about volume of business and value of that volume in very simplistic terms. You know, we think of it as funnels and so forth, but how many people can we talk to? And of those people that we talk to or get exposed to, how many of those people will buy something from us? That's it. What we often do, though, is we get caught into our own paradigm of what we think we're selling. We want to make ourselves feel good that our hotel is pretty. We want to make sure that everything we're doing is right. We don't make decisions to make wrong ones. We don't choose our choices knowing that they're not the right choices. We always try to think that what we're choosing and deciding on are the best options that we have to choose from or decide on. The reality of it is, though, is that we don't. For years, I used to smirk, make jokes about, refer to vanity pictures. Back when our limited resources of only getting pictures that were given to us by large, expensive photo shoots, which still persists to some degree today, but we have a lot more consumer content that's out there. We always had the vanity shots for the owners. They always wanted to see their building, their porte-cochere. And that was the one I always smirked about because nobody cares about a porte-cochere. Most people don't even say the word porte-cochere. It's the drive-up, it's the drive-through, it's the entranceway, it's whatever. But it's a very large expense on building a building in comparison to just building the building for the visual presence of being there. That's what it's for. Overhang so you're not getting rained on, sure. Place that there's a center of activity going in and out of the hotel or the resort, sure. But it's a big part of the cost and production of the place. And owners loved those pictures. Whenever you showed a series of pictures from a photo shoot of a property to an owner, they always picked that one up. They always looked at that one because that was what they spent the money on. That's the hotel, that's the entrance. It's not the backside loading dock. It's not just the area over by the pool. That is the hotel. That is where it all begins, is the porte-cochere, the entrance. And they always had that perspective of that. And they always wanted that picture. When we first started building websites, they always wanted that picture of the hotel, the glamour shot of the building, the aerial view of the building, the investment, the building. And you know what? It's the least interesting picture to anybody other than the owner. The guest doesn't care. I mean, it's not that they don't mind knowing the size or the dimensions of the building or whether you have a porte cochere or how the entrance looks. It's not the point. They would much rather, and this is proven again and again by the traffic on websites, look at the rooms, look at the common areas to understand a sense of what they're purchasing into. They're making an investment. They're paying money to be where you said they should be. And it's funny because the contrast was always there. We advertised with what the ownership wanted, which wasn't to the benefit of the user that needed the more visual information that helped them make the decision of how nice do the rooms. And people knew that they were being stylized and perfected and airbrushed and all the other things that we did at the time. But they wanted to have some reference point as to what the rooms should look like, what they would be staying in should they come there, or that they're going to be staying in that they decided to be in. Porte cochere is not that. The building isn't that. So this is the conversation that I have about perspective. If we sell for ourselves, only people like us are going to come to the hotel or the resort. What do I mean by that? It's easy to sell to ourselves. I know what I like. I know what I want when I travel to places, depending upon the reason for my travel. And for that, I make sure that whatever marketing is marketing that I would be receptive to. If I'm traveling for business, I want to be told about Wi-Fi speed. I want to be told about transportation to the hotel. I want to talk about food and availability of food and breakfast and so forth, or common areas and what have you, meeting spaces and so forth. I want to know those things. If I'm leisurely traveling with my family, my wife and I, then I want to know about what is nearby the hotel. What can I do while I'm at the hotel? How good is the food? And of course, Wi-Fi and so forth. All of these things are from my perspective. And we categorize, we put people into groups so that we understand contextually what they all might be similarly looking for. This is a human trait of ours. We stereotype, we categorize people. I always used to make the joke when I was speaking in conferences and groups that there's no such thing as a Smurf unless you believe in little blue people. Smurf is a category acronym that we use for group travel, social, military, educational, religious, fraternal. It's the way we categorize people in context of what they're traveling for. Smurf business weddings were because they're coming to a wedding. So either we're hosting the wedding or we're a part of the wedding, or the group's going to be staying at us because of a wedding. There's a context to what they're looking for when they travel. The ability to gather, the ability, maybe if they're having the wedding with us, the ability to have the event itself, and so forth and so on. So we categorize these people so that we know if we're going to market to that group of people, if we're going to want more wedding business, let's say, then that group of people would be interested in the following list of things. We categorize them. We try to understand their perspective of what they want. Completely different than a business conference that's not looking at whether or not I have taffeta or peach chair covers. They're more interested in whether or not I have configurable rooms for the facility meetings that they need, whether it's Chevron or classroom or rounds of 8 or 10. What's the capacity of the rooms for those things, so forth. The Wi-Fi is critical to that. The AV is critical to that. There is a lot difference of things that they need. How many room variations do they have for breakouts and so forth? Their coffee breaks and details like that are much more in the perspective. That's why I always chuckle when people have a one-form RFP on their website for anything related to group business, because if you just keep the fundamentals to the RFP, you're missing Smurf business. If you put a Smurf RFP to handle everything, then you're missing the corporate business, because nobody's going to tell you the color combinations they want for a corporate meeting. They want certain factual functional things. They don't care about the rest of these things. So you have to have tailored aspects to these categorizations that we create for ourselves, which most places tend not to do well with. Anyway, that's a digression tangent. The idea is that everybody has a different perspective of why they're at your hotel. Now, 2 shows ago, show 484, we talked about losing your base potentially. Actually, for show 483, where if you try too hard to chase down businesses that you don't normally have, then you can disingenuine or disconnect yourself from the people that are your core group of people that have always stayed at your hotel. Example being, if you have always had families staying at your hotel and you are driving for metrosexual business affluent up and coming travelers, that contrast that's created between them both being in the same lobby means that you diminish your family core because they feel displaced. And those people you're trying to garner, they don't feel like you're truly focused on them, and you lose on both ends. Don't lose track of your base. And your base shifts during the course of the year. We talked about all this at the show, that your base shifts according to the demand of your market for the time of year that they're coming for. Spring break, family generation. Meanwhile, other times, shoulder season, so might be event driven and not as family based. Those are the conversations we had in show 483. If you want to go back and take a peek at that. The idea that perspective goes to what you're telling them they should know to make a decision about staying with you. And we've already talked about selling to yourself, not a good component because it very narrow casts it down. It will be self-fulfilling too, which is another problem with how you do these things of perspective selling, is if you only sell to a certain segment and you drive business from that segment, then you believe that's the only segment that's driving business for you. It's kind of build it and they'll come. You're right. If I target and market it and they produce, it's there. You may miss a lot more people in your own focused targeting than you are getting. That's one problem with it, and I'll explain that in just a second. And the other is you might be ignorant of other sources of business that, should you just be make a presence for yourself, would drive business from. So let me give you a case and example. A hotel or a resort can be in a certain location, and because of where they are, they think geographically, because historically this is where most of their business came from, that they come from certain regions. So you hyper target market your business to those geographies. Hey, this is where everybody comes from, so let's market to those areas that we have everybody come from. Sounds good at surface level, and it's good at a certain level. You should never not do this. Cater to your base, right? I just said that. Problem is, it might be out of ignorance that people aren't just because of the geography they're coming from, but because of the interest they might have in you, and they just happen to be in that geography for it. So it's a demographic issue as much as it's a geographic issue. You're a ski resort, and you get a lot of people from an area that's around you that comes because that's your convenience, your drive market. It's an easy decision. The powder's coming this weekend, so they can hop in the car, they can drive to you. So there's a high demand because of that. But what you are not doing is realizing that it's not just because they're geographically close to you and that they're interested in skiing. Why not talk to everybody else that's interested in skiing, that's willing to travel, not just because of a car, but from a flight? Look at the people that can make it to you based on the fact of why people are there for you in the first place. So geographically, you're correct. There is a high yield on people that love skiing and are geographically close enough to you that they're going to come and ski. That's true, but it's not the only people. If there's an airport, which there is, and then there's means to get to you, which there are, that are elsewhere, and there's a huge dedication of skiers and other places, which I always find is like Florida has the largest snow ski club, and Colorado has the largest scuba diving club. Yeah, anyways. So the idea is make yourself aware to all of them, because they will, for those that are dedicated to the idea of enjoying what you have to offer, willing to make the effort to get to you. And it's not because they're driving. They might easily make the flight because they can get to you because what you have is reasonable. Another lost potential is the interest is still there. And it's not because they can just drive to you, but they're going to some other place and they might include you in that loop or that arc because you're between their point A and their point C. You might be a good point B. There's lots of ways to look at it rather than just self-assigning the fact that it's only for this reason that people are coming to you. So expanding your perspective of why. Why are people coming to you? Why are they interested in you? Who is in your front door? And not just from what you've been marketing, which again, as I said, is self-fulfilling, but also the core of what the interest is from their perspective. What's some of the best ways to do that? Well, one of them is to plan a trip to your destination. We've talked about content. We've talked about targeting. We've talked about lots of things in the past couple of shows. related to understanding the process of discovery, education, and conversion when it comes to content and so forth. I think I've made mention many times in the show that I used to, when running hotels, love hiring non-hotel people because there's a certain magic that they feel when they're at the hotel. This is as I did, where it's like this is amazing. I get to have a great quality experience for people. They get to stay, and I'm their host, and I get to go and give them a wonderful experience. But more importantly, is because they're not tainted by the mechanics of understanding the process of the business as much. When you bring in a previously hotel experienced person, they understand the ebb and flow of the function of the hotel. So should there is, and this is the example I always give, if you walk up to a front desk of a hotel and there's nobody immediately behind the front desk, you look at your watch and you realize that it's shift change. Or you look at your watch and realize that they just cut their staff down to one person, and that person just happens to inconveniently be behind the wall, someone in another room temporarily until they come back out to the front desk. Whatever. Think of a night auditor at 1 o'clock in the morning. But to the guest, the perspective is, where is everybody? Why shouldn't there be somebody behind the front desk? That's their rationale. And a new hired person that hasn't worked in hotels, that's what they feel too. Is like, well, the person should be behind the desk. It should be like a tether. You should never not be behind the desk. If you're by yourself, you should never not be behind the front desk. Do everything at the front desk if you have to. Don't miss being at the front desk because you never know when a guest's going to around the corner. That perspective helps in guest experience. The idea that planning a trip to your hotel makes you realize what's not common knowledge. And what do I mean by this? You know why your hotel is there. You know what's around your hotel. You've been through seasons. You know the events. You know what's good. Where is it good to eat? Where is it not good to eat? How long does it take to get from here to there? Your common knowledge, familiarity is literally your asset. That's the part that needs to get translated into your marketing. The problem is a lot of that common knowledge never gets put into your marketing. You don't often think that people get confused by the off-ramp to your hotel, or the cloverleaf by your hotel, or the shuttles that do or don't run to your hotel from the airport, or the proximity of certain places that are not well known around your hotel. I've often made the joke that the brochure rack cards that some hotels still have, and I have never not been to a hotel that's had a brochure rack card still that doesn't have something in the brochure rack card that literally is not online. It's Joe's and Bubba's charter boats or something, and it's just local. It's just that, and their whole marketing is because people locally know them, and that they make little brochures and put them in brochure racks because somebody had the common sense to go by and say, "Hey, you pay us money, we'll put a brochure rack in for people staying at the hotels in your area," and they did that, and that's their marketing. That's what they do. So all of this information, first off, is not commonly aware of, and even if you do, just dump all this content onto your site saying, we're just going to take all this stuff and we're going to put a whole huge calendar of events. We're going to put a huge whole local to do, all this other stuff. Without it being done properly, it gets lost, number one. Number two, it can be easily overwhelming, especially with the AI piles of junk that are being piled up right now, where AI is just being massively dumping content that's not even necessarily accurate. And so a lot of people are doing this saying, look at all this content I have. Yes, but it's not functionally useful content when it comes to it. It's not something that is useful as much as discoverable. So plan a trip to your destination and realize that it's hard to find stuff. And where you find the resource that is the most helpful is disappointingly not you. And sometimes, regrettably, it's your competition that's doing a better job of selling itself, selling the destination and selling itself than you are, which makes it scary because now you're relying upon your competition to tell people about your destination in the hopes that they choose you over the very person or entity that gave them the content that was most helpful. Not a winning situation to be in. Another part of planning a trip for your own destination is the frustrations that you get in when you're booking funnel of, well, What kind of room is that? I know what kind of room it is. I've cleaned the rooms like that, but it doesn't say it well in my description. And you might find that there's hiccups in your content. And you might find that there's an image for the wrong room attached to the wrong room. There might be a picture of your restaurant that is neither accurate nor timely. There might be a menu item that you no longer carry or prices that you no longer have. It may be events that no longer are happening. It may be restaurants and activities and things around in your market that no longer exist. And you might find that where you have always relied upon the Chamber of Commerce or the tourism board or the CVB or whatever to be the main vanguard of selling your destination, they suck. They don't have good content. They aren't doing a good job. When you're looking for your own destination, you might find there's a whole lot of other symbiotic destinations that are literally eating your lunch because your end destination isn't doing a good job selling itself, but they, as a destination similar to the audiences that you want, are. That self-discovery makes a huge influence on how you go forward with your marketing, how well you can do making it better for people to understand why they want to stay with you, and more importantly, why they want to come to your destination to stay with you. That self-planning is important. A lot of times, nobody in the food chain that we just described of ownerships and managements and properties do that. Properties don't do it most of the time because they feel that it's not in their realm of responsibility. Management companies don't do it because they feel that the property should be self-engaged. Kind of like, wait a minute, I thought you were doing it. No, I thought you were doing it. Ownership looks down to everybody, thinking that everybody else should be doing that because they spent the money to build it. Doesn't mean that they're the ones that are going to then sell it. So then you say, well, I'm a branded hotel. Brand should be doing that. Brand doesn't do it. Brand sells brand, of which you're part of the portfolio, but they're not selling your hotel. They're not selling the nuance of your hotel, however generic your brand might be for it. They're not selling the service levels of your hotel. They're not selling the fact of your proximity to certain things. You have to do that, but they limit you as to what you're capable of doing for yourself. So what you have to do is go into lateral channels like social media, where you have a more expanded opportunity to share content about yourself that you can't get to share on what's allowed by the brand on a website that they basically gave you to borrow. So planning a trip for your own destination is a good self-awareness as to what you're doing. Again, perspective and being the key to targeting. We told you not about selling to yourself. You can sell to yourself. I mean, if you're a good candidate for being a customer of your own hotel or resort, absolutely, you don't want to exclude that. But making it your vanguard is not your best thing. Who else comes to your hotel, when, and why? These are questions. Now, we've talked about personas. And I've told you that I've inverted my persona discussion from before making personas and then defining market strategy towards them. And then now taking with GA4 the data and looking at the actions that drive performance and then understanding the personas associated with them is my new modality. But out of both of those, personas are still a very valuable perspective. Personas require us to understand, by putting fences around it, whom we're trying to create our advertising for based on why we think that they're the people that would be coming into our resort or hotel. These are the families that come during spring break or the soft adventurers that come during ski season. They're the people that we define in the context of what we understand about them in avatarish ways, digital avatarish ways, their preferences for certain things, their relevant incomes, their relevant age, their relevant interests, their driving forces based on events or things in our market or activities in our market, whatever those may be. We define a persona to them so that we have some sort of benchmark to refer to our advertising, so that from the perspective of creating advertisement, the advertisement resonates better with them because we're not just selling brand and rate and date stuff. Okay. We're selling the potential of their interest in us. Going back to my business model, if we're a business hotel and I'm targeting a persona of a business traveler during a certain course of year, I'm going to talk about how door to door it is to get from the airport conveniently and safely. I want to talk about the quality of the food that we have while staying with us and the availability of it, and the comfort of just having areas that you don't have to get outside of the hotel or resort to go anyplace else, in the sense of, hey, I want to sit down and have a beer at the end of the day from a long work day that I'm doing, that my Wi-Fi is good, that business services are available. whatever that may be, convenience to large organizations in my market that people are traveling because of business for, those things, abilities to get to those, what have you. Self-discovers of the destination. If you had 36 hours in your town or destination, what not to miss, because if I have downtime, I want to get distracted. I'm just not going to sit twiddling my thumbs looking at TV in my room. I want to go maybe kill a few hours just seeing something local. That helpful stuff. That's a persona of a business traveler during a certain time of year for what you want to put into your marketing, your content. It isn't just about offering the businessman special. It's about offering what I would be interested in knowing more about to make my decision to stay with you. I already have the decision of having to come to your destination. That's why I'm looking at you. It's a business driven trip. I already have the purpose. Now I have to put it in context of my purpose of my travel, proximity, value proposition, quality services, and amenities that I'm wanting. That's a lot different than a family vacation or a couple's vacation or group wedding, Smurf vacation travel, or a conference. These are all things that change the perspective of what you're talking about. You're not going to talk about touristy things to do to a business person as much as you're going to talk about that to a transient traveler. You're not going to talk about that in the case of weddings, as you're going to talk about your diversity of catering and your dedication to quality and those kind of key things that they're very important to the decision process associated with that type of business. So perspective of how you put the content together is important. Perspective also comes from how people are perceiving you. And I'll say that from the hurricanes that we've had recently here in Florida, in Southwest Florida. The perspective of what happened to our market is profound on the people's interest in our market. Knowing the damage that happened from the media coverage that was had for the storms that passed by the west coast of Florida this year, people's perspective of whether they wanted to come to our part of Florida rode on what was perceived as to being available here. Nobody wants to go take a vacation where there's still, heavy machineries plowing debris off of the beach right next to you. Or that the water is not able to be enjoyed because there's junk in it, or that the hotel can't really give you the amenities because the restaurant's still closed because it got flooded. These things create a perspective shift. So you can sit back and say, well, I can't really sell the hotel much because, and we had a great show about this actually in summer, about the levels of engagement, whether you're fully down, partially down, or completely available, what you should do in each of those categories. I think that was show 472 or 475. That all changes as to whom you target. We talked about the fact that maybe first responders and support teams are better suited to be in your hotel because they need the proximity to what they're working on. And it's not you're a transient hotel at that point, as you are just facilities for accommodations. It's a business. You have to make your revenue to make your overhead coverage. Then there's the fact that maybe you're untouched, but nobody wants to come to your market because there's very little to do, or you're being perceived in whole to the whole market as being not a place to come visit. How do you get out from underneath that cloud? We talked about that perspective of marketing also changing. So perspective is a key element to your targeting. Perspective of what the persona is wanting and needing from you, and identifying the context of what content you need for that, and then deciding what channels you're going to use to put it in front of them for them to be interested in making the conversions that you're doing this whole process for. So that's really the whole idea of the perspective is the key to targeting. So I think we've hit on the points that I wanted to make. I hope that for everyone that's out and about for doing their Black Fridays and all of the purchases that they're looking to make, I think from a hotel and hospitality perspective, we need to understand that there's a lot of value propositions to what we can sell this time of year, more particularly, sorry. And that is, we're going to do a show, not next week. Next week, we're already predetermined to have one on the diminishing value of internet and internet bias, the pendulum swing of people using less of the internet and AI's negative influence on internet usage and so forth. We're going to have that show next week. That's in the works of discussions with some co-hosts and stuff. But the week after, talking about gift cards memberships, engagements, first person engagements, and not abusing it from a frequency program that so many brands tend to do, but actually creating a value proposition of engagement because of gift cards and what the value of marketing with gift cards can be. So we're going to have that show in about 2 weeks. So with that, next week, of course, we're going to be talking about internet and the changing perspective on internet value. Sneak peek on that. After that, we're going to be talking about gift cards, gift card marketing, and membership engagement usages and so forth, which is always a fun one to talk at this time of year because gift cards are phenomenal when it comes to our industry and the value to it and so forth, and future value of lifetime value for it as well. So we'll get into that as well. As always, if you have any questions, feedback, or anything you'd like to get with me, please reach me via email at lauren@hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com, or you can reach me at hdm.news/talkback. I always have a weekly audio question, and you can answer that or give me any audio feedback and give me permissions as to how much I refer to it or engage you with it. If you're a hospitality marketing professional, and wish to join our peer level group at all different levels, really, you can join the Hospitality Marketing Club at hospitalitymarketing.club. Go put your email in. I send you a quiz to validate that you are indeed a hospitality marketer, not just somebody trying to be curious or interested in the process. There's plenty of places to learn hospitality marketing elsewhere. I'm not endorsing them because they're not all good, but there's places. And of course, for everyone that watches us on our hospitality channel, TV channel, thank you so very much for doing that on your Roku, Google, Amazon, Apple, all the platforms we are available on. Also as an iOS app and Google Play app, simply go for Hospitality Channel, look for it, and you can watch our show on your mobile device as well. If by chance you're watching us on our simulcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch, by all means, thank you so much for all of that. We are off of X, just because it's a cesspool of mess, and we've already converted everybody that would be following us on it over to other channels, so we don't feel like we're missing out on anything, and certainly not some of the people that are on there anyway. So all of that being said, my name is Lauren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time and look forward to talking to you next week.